Is this thing on?
Are you ready, Matt?
You're listening to Box Office Bingers
with Matt Diaz and Ernesto Santos.
Good evening, folks. We have a wonderful evening's entertainment lined up for you.
We know each other. He's a friend from work.
Box Office Bingers.
And the only way that I know how to do it is to find you a bloody good dump.
He's my friend. I don't have friends. I got family.
I can do this all day.
You know, if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything.
Matt, I hope you're ready for this week's episode. This is it took us a journey to get here. This is for those who are watching. Will not be your normal show. We had some technical issues, but we made it here with some glue and some duct tape. We put some shit together to make it work this week. So there will be a show. Just it's gonna look and feel just a little different.
Just a smidge different. Yeah, you're not wrong. And the movie in question, as promised probably 2 weeks ago, because we promised it, then the next week and we didn't do it, and then now we're here. But anyway, this week we are reviewing Kinds of Kindness, the movie written and directed by Lanthimos. He most recently did Poor Things, which we very, very much enjoyed. It won several Oscars this past year. He's also responsible for the favorite killing of the scared deer, sacred deer. Sacred. I don't know why I keep saying that. It's Killing of the Sacred Deer and The Lobster, starring Emma Stone, Jesse Plemons, Willem Dafoe, a lot of the same people that came in from Poor Things over to Kinds of Kindness. But yeah, I think this would be a very interesting conversation. I think for me, going into this movie, I literally knew nothing.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I also felt the same way when I walked out of the movie.
So, I feel like it's one of those situations where we liked. Well, I don't want to give away much of our spoiler review until later, a little bit later into the show. But it's one of those situations where we saw Poor Things. We went into that movie with saying that a lot of people were saying it was good. So we went to go see it. It was nominated. We said, wow, this is a great movie. And then Yorgos was like, hey, I got another one coming out. It's like, okay, we're going to watch this one next because we liked Poor Things so much. I didn't even watch the trailer. I couldn't even tell you what the movie was about based on the few little clips that I saw from the trailer. And then to your point, you walk into the theater and you walk out and it's like, I still don't know what this movie is about. But we're going to try our darndest to try to figure it out when we have our spoiler review for that movie. But before we dive into that, like Ernesto said, this is going to be a little bit of a different format. We're not going to have any news this week, nor are we going to have our traditional Whatcha Watchin. Instead, we're going to focus on basically three things. Ernesto wanted to have a week on the House of the Dragon, and we were like, yes, we're going to do that, and so we're going to continue to do that. And then also, I guess, just out of chance, we were both watching The Boys, and we said, hey, why not continue this trend with The Boys as well? So we're going to be going over our all of this is going to be spoilers, so if you're not caught up with The Boys or House of Dragon, spoilers, be warned. But we're going to dive into The Boys pretty much up until episode 5. That's, as we haven't really talked much about it. We're kind of coy about it, but now we're all caught up. So we're going to talk about up until episode 5 of The Boys, and then after that we're going to dive into episode 3, The House of Dragon, and then we're going to dive into our spoiler review of Kinds of Kindness. So while we get started right now, let's talk about The Boys. Ernesto, I know you gave us a little bit of a tease of what you kind of liked about the first 3 episodes, or even up until the 4th episode, really. So now going into the 5th, how are your thoughts about the season, the episode, and then when you're done, I'll dive into kind of what I felt like for the first 5 episodes.
Okay. As I kind of mentioned, I've really enjoyed this season. I think the political nature really fits into what's happening in our society. It's just the show is very culturally relevant. They found ways to weave it in there. which I've been fine with, especially since the creator came out and said, like, yeah, this is what I'm doing. Like, Homelander, that's your Donald Trump. Firecracker, that's Marjorie Taylor Greene. Marjorie Taylor Greene. And now, you know what? If that's what you want to do, then that's fine. At least you're being very upfront about it. And to me, it wasn't in my face. Like, somebody once it was told to me, I was like, oh yeah, okay. Yeah, okay, I can see the connection. I see how that works. I was able to make those connections. I'm fine with it. I think that the story's taken a great direction. I really, really enjoyed episode 4 as far as a way for us to understand Homelander as a villain. Like, you go, oh, well, I can kind of understand why he is the way he is, and really seeing him reconnect with the people who raised him in that episode. Yeah. Like, there's just so many good moments when he's and I'm assuming you're all caught up. So in episode 4, when he's talking to one of the guys, and he's like, let's play a waste paper basketball, or I forgot let's play basketball. He goes, I remember you scored in one shot and you cheered as the skin, after you turned up the heat and the skin was ripping off of my flesh. He's like, granted, while I was still healing and, regenerating, I felt every single ounce of pain. He goes, oh, maybe you don't remember. Here, why don't you look at it from my point of view? I'm going to put you in the oven, and I'm going to throw it in here, and then let's see if this will help rekindle your memory. I was like, whoa.
I mean, it was definitely a brutal scene it's not something that we haven't seen from Homelander. Obviously, literally 2 episodes before, he was trying to find the leak who gave the boys the information about, like, acquitting those 2 men, and then when they thought they found the person who leaked the information, he instantly lasered them, even though he said nothing was going to happen to her. So, like, he's definitely known for brutal, but this felt a little bit different than what he's done in the past. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, it almost like it's like extremely personal this time.
Well, yeah, and then I mean, at the very end, when he puts all those people in those rooms, and you don't see what happened, but you come back and you see the director just surrounded by mangled bodies, and he made that guy masturbate in front of everybody, and then like, he went through the whole thing, and then lasered his, genitals off. And then did he crush his head so that he could, like...
He did.
Because she's like, put him out of his misery, and then he just like stepped on his head. It was pretty brutal. It was and that was just episode 4. I felt like episode 5 was like, hey, all that dark shit last episode, let's take a break. So,
well, I don't know, man. I mean, some of it was kind of dark. So
it was funny though.
Episode
5 was really.
It was funny. Yeah. Yeah, there were funny moments in there for sure. I don't know what people were talking about. Last week we had the conversation. I hadn't watched any of The Boys, and now a week later I've caught up with The Boys, and I know a lot of people are like a little apprehensive about episodes 1, 2, and 3, and maybe they didn't like the political angle. But honestly, I was for every episode so far. I like the directions that they've been going. I like the new characters that they introduced. I really like Sister Sage and Firecracker as new additions to the 7. They offer 2 unique things to the ongoing story that they're telling. Sister Sage is helping Homelander like kind of take over the world in a way, and doing it in a sly manner. And then you have Firecracker, who's like literally going after Starlight and the Starlighters in the most brutal way possible, spreading false information and also true information as well. It's I like what's been going on. I mean, if I feel like if there's anything that's a little bit like, all that stuff for me is kind of really entertaining to watch because a lot of it's unexpected. The part that I really don't care too much about is Frenchie's storyline and Kimiko's storyline, because I feel like that's like, especially with Frenchie, he's just dealing with the guilt of murdering a family that the person that he's sleeping with. And like, I there's only one way that could have gone. And as we left episode 5, he went to the police and turned himself in after telling the person he was sleeping with to that he killed his family. So it's like, there's not really much like there was only two ways this was going to go: either not tell him, or live with the guilt, or not live with the guilt. It's like we see how his character is kind of going a little bit of like all the murder he's done in the past. I don't know, it's not as captivating as I say some of the other ones. And even with the butcher, we don't really know what's going on with him. Is he dying? It seems like he is. I don't feel like he's going to die at the end of the season. I'll give them so much credit if they kill him off at the end of the season. I just don't see it happening. I feel like that's like he's probably going to be all right by the end of this type of.
You think they're going to save him? You think there's going to be like a magical save at the end of the season?
Something like that. Yeah,
See,
it just feels like that's.
I think that he is dying, and a theory we were talking about at work is I think that Jeffrey Dean Morgan's character, he is an aberration of his mind. Like he is.
Oh yeah, no, I've seen that. Yeah,
right. Because every time he talks to them, there's nobody else around. He didn't show up until after they kicked him out of the boys, and then like even when he was talking to the guy who to make this is the part that I was like, that's a little like crazy even for the boys to throw them off of the scent, to think that this guy's alive. Like he doesn't just cut off like a small piece, he cuts off like pretty much his entire leg.
Yeah.
Now they definitely will think you're dead. But when he has him tied up in the room and he says we, and he sees him looking around, like he doesn't respond to as if there's another person in the room. He's just kind of looking like, all right, this crazy fuck just cut my leg off, and I guess I'm gonna have to make this virus. See, but I thought thought that whole angle in episode 5 also was like really funny, like the V'd up animals like killing everybody.
So good,
so good, so good.
So I love the scene where we see the bull. It feels like it's about to attack them, and all of a sudden flying sheep comes out of nowhere and destroys that bull, and then they're just like, run, we got to get out of here. And it was kind of funny to watch. I agree with you there. Going back to that scene where he's talking to the guy who got his leg cut off, and he's kind of like, I kind of really like how that's shot, because like he says, and he's talking to Jeffrey D. Morgan, and then he looks. And you can interpret it as two ways. You can look as if he's scared looking at Jeffrey Dean Morgan, but as I also saw it with you, he looked at him as like, who the hell are you talking to? And that's the way that I feel like that as much as you do. I feel like that's how that scene went. I don't think he's actually there. What was quite surprising for me this season is like Huey's story. I feel like he's very disconnected to kind of what's going on. They purposefully separated him from kind of the ongoing stuff because his father is dying, and they're really focusing on his relationship with his mother. And honestly, I really wasn't expecting to have kind of a teary-eyed moment when Simon Pegg, his father, died. At the end, they try to give him Compound V, and he make amends sort of with A-Train to get the Compound V. Gets it, didn't want to put it within his dad because like he kind of was against it. Mom found it in his jacket, gave it to him, and then he was able to get that moment with his dad that he wanted before he went into the coma. And then it just went into the boys' fashion and very graphic and horrific as he's speeding through buildings and, killing people. And then ultimately coming to the accept that he was already going to die anyway. And then you have this nice moment where you're like, you know what? I never got to go to Paris. Like, don't worry, Dad. You're going to go to Paris. And to me, it was just so sad. Like, you thought for the first 4 episodes, he just was going to die. And Simon Pegg was just there to sit in a bed for 4 episodes. Yeah. But they gave him this moment to kind of realize that, you can't cheat death. No matter how hard you try, you literally killed innocent people, tried to save one person. And then ultimately went to the conclusion that you should have just, let him die in the first place. I don't know. It was, to me, that hit hard in a way. It's like, we see that with Butcher dealing with, kind of accepting the terms of death and like trying to make amends where he can throughout the season. I think this is another strong bout for the boys. I don't see any issues here. I like that Mother's Milk is a leader. Like he's so much of a better leader than Butcher was. He's
But
very
but they do showcase how unexperienced he is. Like when they're fighting the guy who multiplies himself, who gave himself pink eye, because he was eating his own ass out. It was pretty gross.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways,
Yes, it was.
That moment really showcased that. Yeah, why Mother Milk may have good intentions and he's trying to do right by everybody, but that part showcase where the Butcher is always willing to do whatever it takes to take care of his people. And, he was told to leave and he came back anyway because he knew that they were going to need him. Like, because he foresaw how it was going to turn out. Whereas Mother Milk was more hopeful in that the plan that he made would go exactly as planned. Like when they're trying to look for them in the other room and, Sister Sage and everybody just pop up right behind him. And he was unexpected, but Billy comes in like, yeah, fuckers, like, of course this was going to happen. Like, so like, whereas Butcher is not a good leader, sometimes his plans work out in the end, but it's how he gets there and how he goes about conducting his business is what the issue is.
Yeah, but also like he definitely has the respect of his teammates.
Yeah.
Like I think he has great leadership qualities. But to your point, I think he's still trying to figure out how to be an effective leader, where Butcher is more straightforward and gets the job done, and that's his leadership quality. But yeah, I mean, again, going back to Sister Sage, I like her character. I think it's crazy that she gives herself to feel dumb. I think that, to me, I was kind of confused when we saw that in episode 4, and then they kind of explained it in 5. I was like, oh my god, it's like, hey, yeah, you want to sleep with me? You want to have sex? You got to give me a lobotomy, and then my brain's gonna grow back. Don't worry. And then then she can be dumb enough to want to make stupid decisions, which I don't know. Maybe that can come back and haunt them in a point of need in later on in the season. I also like a lot of. I mean, they've been doing this for quite some time. A lot of subtle jabs at Disney and Marvel. I really like the Vought on Ice is hilarious. Even it was like a Christmas special on Ice, and they were just something about like I forgot what the Christmas special was about, but I think one of the songs was like putting Christ back in Christmas, and it was so stupid, but it was so funny. And I love during the V52 Expo, a clear nod to D23 Expo, and then there's like, here's all the phases of their Vought movie slate, and they're like, and now we're gonna go over phases 7 through 19 here in the expo.
Oh, hold on, I got it right here.
It was so funny. Oh, you have the photo of the phases?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, it's so funny.
Vought 52 Expo. This is Screen Rant's recording of it.
Yeah. And this is just 7 through 10.
Yeah, this is just
Training A Train was the one that was being featured in the season so far.
With Will Ferrell.
With Will Ferrell, yes. Super School. They mentioned Super School also in that episode, that it was going to be starring Butch Homelander's son, which that has been an interesting situation lately. Before we dive into that, there's like a lot of good ones. Was it Gods and Dolphins?
Where do you see that one?
In phase 9.
Oh yeah, The Deep, Gods and Dolphins. Firecracker, God help me.
Yeah.
Homelander, Justice Serve.
Also G3, G-Men, obviously X-Men.
G2, G-Men. A-Train, Off the Tracks.
Double Standard, unbelievable. What was that one say? The home of Kwanzaa?
Teenage Kicks, Home for Kwanzaa 2.
Oh my
God. The Guardians of Godolkin, Flipped.
Yeah. And that's the also they made an appearance in this episode, and I really do feel like they didn't do much at all, or they utilized them.
But maybe that's now.
Hopefully they have more. yeah, I hope that maybe we can. But yeah, going back to the Homelander's son Ryan and his angle, I really like how that Homelander has trying to get to his son this entire time and it's not working. But then he finds a way of like, if Ryan's in control of what he wants to do, and I want to, is like, oh, you want to help that? You want to help her? Yeah, hey, go get them. He's like, is this man harassing you? And she goes, yeah. He's like go slap him. And like for Ryan, that is helping. Like, oh, he felt good about that because like justice is being served there, but it's not the right way to do it. But it's the kind of a way that Homelander can get into the mind of his son. Like, oh, okay, this is how we need to do it. So also posing a very dangerous, and a next couple of very dangerous to where he can land. And obviously the relationship he has with Butcher and his father Homelander. But so, yeah, I mean, all in all, like so far, the first 5 episodes have been really interesting. I really don't feel like there's any dull moments in there. I think season 3 was really strong for me, so I'm not sure if it's hitting those highs just yet. But so far, I'm enjoying what.
I mean, we've got.
Yeah.
I mean, three more. I mean, we're getting close to the end. We're already over halfway.
Yeah.
But we're at a crucial point. I mean, we already see kind of where the end game is heading. You know, Butcher's gonna get this one-leg guy to create another virus for him. But I think, you know, how many viruses does he want? Because he also wants to use it on the head popper chick, who is like, she's indestructible. Like, you can't, like, literally nothing will hurt her.
Yeah, that's been interesting as well. And also, I forgot another mention. This was in episode 3 where Homelander was talking to him multiple selves through the broken glass. I thought that was a really cool scene. It reminded me a lot of Green Goblin in the first Spider-Man movie when he's like talking to his like his inner demon glass. But yeah, you're right. I think the end game is like we want this virus to be made so we kick down our biggest enemies, take down the soups, no more soups. And so like interesting to see where we leave off on either the virus working or the soups taking over leading into season 5, which we learned will be the final season of The Boys. And
which I think is good.
Yeah.
I can see like it's getting like I'm really enjoying it, but I can see where it could get to a point where it's like, all right, like we need to wrap this bad boy up.
Yeah, I rather them end on top, and this is the creators doing this too. They were like, we got renewed for a 5th season, and we're choosing that season to be our last. And you're ending on their own terms, and so you know that they're writing the story to end on the way they want to, and not getting canceled, and not just kind of taking this until the joke is over, it's gone too far. So I like it. I think 5 seasons is a good number too for a show.
Gives it good rewatchability.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I think so far I look forward to watching episode 6 when that drops. I think it definitely, obviously it always warrants a week to week, but again, having these conversations definitely makes it sink in a little bit more, and excited to watch the next episode.
Exactly. It week to week only works if the content is good. Like if the writing is so good and they end it on a point that feels like a good week to week, then otherwise just binge it.
Agreed.
All right. So hold on. This is a slight sidebar. I know since we're not doing what you're watching, so you're watching The Acolyte. Week to week or binge?
Binge.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm choosing because so with certain shows, and Star Wars included, and mainly Star Wars and Marvel, and how I like to primarily watch, if there's not like a 100% a need for me to watch it as soon as it comes out, then I'll let a few episodes kick in, and then I will pick a point to start the show, and then eventually I'm doing like a half week to week. Like I'll let it go through about halfway. I binge through half of it, and then the week to week, so I'm not getting spoilers toward the end. And so The Acolyte is getting to that point where it's like, okay, 5 episodes are dropping, or 6 at this point. Yeah, the 6th episode just dropped, and there's only 8. So like, okay, we're getting closer to the end. I don't want spoilers to hit my way. but yeah, we're getting closer, and I don't want to give too much into much of the Acolyte, but come next week, I will have more of a formulation on my thoughts, because I am on episode 3. There's total of 6 right now, and I'm hearing a clear divide between what people thought about this show, as well as what they felt about the first 3 episodes and then the next 3 episodes. So I kind of want to see it all for myself and then form my own opinion once we get into next week.
Okay. All right. You ready to move on?
Yes.
Dun, 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 dun.
I don't think we're on the same beat, but that's okay, because we're going to talk about
All right. So we're talking about episode 3 of House of Dragon. The Burning Meal, directed by Geeta Vasant Patel, written by David Hancock. It starts with the Brackens and the Blackwoods. That's who those two people are in the beginning of the episode. They're going over a minor dispute about each side is pledging their fealty to one to Rhaenyra, one to Aegon, and then obviously leads to this massive battle, which we don't get to see, which I kind of wish we did get to see. But I guess it makes sense. It's kind of seeing what's to come. But like this episode, I think is really laying the seeds for the war to come. We get Daemon, who flees to Harrenhal, which is basically like a shell of a castle, this massive castle that was burned by Aegon in the previous time, Aegon the Conqueror, and now it's basically like a shell of a castle. So he's there. Rhaenyra's in Dragonstone, trying to figure out what she wants to do. What else we got? She sends the daughters. She sends.
yes. Her is it daughters, just her children?
Oh my gosh. Give me a second. I literally just had it. Rhaenyra sends Rhaena, her younger children, and the dragon eggs to Aeryn to protect her Targaryen line. And for Game of Thrones fans, those who know, it's been confirmed now that those eggs are Daenerys's eggs. So that means that Rhaena is a great grandmother of some sort to them. But this is what leads to, the whole Game of Thrones storyline is this event right here, is her being sent over there, and that's what starts that storyline during Game of Thrones. So it's cool to see that little tie-in. And it wasn't much. It was just a little bit. It was exactly what we needed to get the point across. But I really like this episode. We get to see Aegon kind of be more of a shitty king. He puts on his grandfather's armor because he wants to feel like he is a person who is being led by his ego. Like he seems like he is quick, like he's just very quick to go to war, which is that's why he picked Kristen Cole to be his hand, because he doesn't want somebody who's smart. He wants somebody who's hot-headed. We see Kristen Cole. He meets Queen Alicent. He meets her brother, and you can see right from the very jump, he's very suspicious. Like one of the first things he says to him is, "Oh, so this is the guy who removed my father, who has served the last 3 kings. And I wrote here, he was the hand when I left, and when I got here, you're the hand. So it's so nice to meet you. Oh, my sister's giving you her handkerchief? That's weird."
None of this is making any sense. Where else have your hand has been, sir?
Yeah. So let's talk about what happened to that baby. Where were you, sir?
The memes have been
great.
Oh
my gosh. We haven't even got the best ones from this episode are from the very end. Like literally the whole conversation between Alicent and Rhaenyra. It's like her, there's some, obviously pulling that political nature where they're like Rhaenyra talking about her dad referencing the Dance of Dragons, and then it shows Alicent, and instead of her, it's like Biden looking around, like lost. It's like, huh? What'd you say? Or like just some was like, yeah, okay, I heard you, but it's too late now. Like, I don't know what to tell you. That's big. Like that. It's that whole interaction was crazy because the second when she realizes, and I think her name is Emma Darcy, I think is the actress's name. Like, she just plays it off so well. She just looks. She's like, it's like, you stupid asshole. Like, this whole time, this was for that. It's like, you don't even know what you're talking about. It's like, what? It's like, you have to tell them. It's like, well, it's too late. It's like, it's at first I saw
she's not wrong.
It's not, and I was looking at it as like, maybe, well, she's willfully doing those things, but now in retrospect it seems like, well, like, all these things are already set in motion. Like, so many other things that have happened that this simple mistake cannot rectify all this other shit that's happened. Like your son being eaten by a dragon. Like my grandchild head being chopped off by these two guys. Like, that's not going to bring these things back, and we're already set in motion all these other things. What were your thoughts on the episode?
Yeah, I know. I thought it was a little bit slower than the first two. That's for sure. But I think, honestly, the whole episode culminates to that meeting that they had face to face. The photo that we're seeing here. This is where the drama is. Those two interaction, the scheming, these two women who are in this world of like trying to be leaders in a way, but yet they have all these barriers they have to go through to get their point across. Even so much so that I'm not sure if it was in this episode, or no, it wasn't this episode, where Rhaenyra's court was like, hey, would you want to go in hiding and we can cover all the stuff from here? It's like, it's for your protection. She's like, are you kidding me right now? Like, you just want me to go and hide and not do any of my duties as the queen? Like, are you crazy? Like, you can see that she's dealing with, like, no one's understanding that, or even treating her with respect. And it's like, oh, well, where's Daemon? Like, well, Daemon's not the fucking queen. I am. You know, it's like who gives a shit where Daemon is? He fled. And like, I think that was kind of funny. I'm here right now. I think it was kind of funny that Daemon just went over. It's like, I'm going to conquer Harrenhal. And then he's walking through the gates. Like, obviously no one's there, gets into the room and was like, I'm here to take it over. He's like, all right, yeah, sure, you can have it. Why are you gonna be so mean? Just sit down. We're having dinner. Yeah, it's yours, whatever. And then he had that dream of like these visions. We saw a younger Millie Alcock came back as to play a younger version of Rhaenyra. But yeah, and then you also had Cole running from the dragon, which was pretty cool. They saw him from above and they're like, we're in the open air, we just got to get out of here. And so like they're trying to invade. So like you had those really cool moments in there. You also had the toward the beginning where we had the fight between the Blackwoods and the Brackens, and though we didn't see the battle, I think that's just kind of the, like, I liked how the episode started and I liked how the episode ended, and it was very much similar in a way where like you have this feud that's been going on that really is just like, well, I'm part of the Greens and you're part of the Blacks, and it's, look how many people died because of that.
Yeah.
Like it was just and obviously they said that they had a history, so I think they were just looking for a reason to fight anyway. And that was just that reason. But like you can see how far this has gone. So to Allison's point toward the end of the episode, yeah, it's too late for whatever happened. But I thought it was such a badass move for Rhaenyra to literally sneak into King's Landing and go right up to her. And the only way that I feel like we can end this war before it starts, if I talk to the woman who's mainly in charge in this, the only person that can see me for reason. And I like that she kind of went in there and snuck in there. And then they had this conversation and they're like, also, first off, very quickly, they're like, Aemon killed my son? You ordered that? It's like, no. Like, these people beheaded my grandson. You ordered that? I was like, no. I was like, all right, I believe you. I believe you. Cool. And like, you can see that they both did not want to go to war. That's not their options. But you also have all these chess pieces in motion, and you also have all these men who are like, they're ready to fight. They want to fight. They want to go to war. It's been years since a war has. And then you have the conversations like Aegon, the king said that Aegon's going to be king. He said something about some story, and you see it in Rhaenyra's face. It's like an instant. Yeah. It's like, I'm sorry, what? What'd you say? You know about the ice and the song of Ice and Fire? You're like Aegon the Conqueror, and you saw Alicent's face. She's like, shit. and she, you can see that, but like you can't say that. No. Like it was a very like props to she's played Alicent. She literally went from like oh shit to be like, well, we're already here. Like it was so quick. It was like, fuck. Well, all right. Well, what do you want me to do about that? Like Aegon's king. There was no mistake. There was no mistake. No mistake. I'm staying by my word, and that's all you can do. Yeah. Because think about it. If Alex say, hey, you know what? I made a mistake, guys. Rhaenyra and I, we had a heart to heart. There was a misunderstanding. She's actually the rightful heir. She's the queen. So we don't gotta go to war. It ain't gonna work out that way. It doesn't work out that way. So I think to me it was such a really cool way to end the episode. And they said that this interaction was not in the book.
Oh really?
It was not in the book at all, and that was completely off, very much for the show. And I think it was needed too, because I think it was needed for both Alicent to realize that she screwed up, but also for Daenerys to know that she was right. So now they both have different motives coming out of that conversation. And you have Rhaenyra really now wanting to be like, well, I am the queen. And now she knows it. She knows it now, and she's not going to admit it. And so, like, I think that was the drive for her to be like, well, if I can't reason with Alicent, we're going to go to war. And then on Alicent's side, it's like, we're going to go to war because there's nothing we can do about it. And so I think, even though for me the episode was kind of a little bit of a lull, I think it ended on such a high that, like, I can't wait for the next episode to come out and see, like, see the next chess pieces to follow from that.
Yeah, the show plays way better as a week to week. You're able to digest and like really like sit on the things that are happening within the show, as opposed to when you just kind of blow right through it.
Also, I don't know what it is, but I only was able to notice it in this episode. I thought the music and the cinematography was so much stronger now in this episode. I thought the shot of the transition between the, like, seeing that battlefield, and it was like a close up of like a dagger or a sword in someone's head, and that was our close up, and then it zooms out to see literally the massacre that has happened on this battlefield, all the bloodshed that has happened. I thought it was a really cool shot. And then we get a one shot of, I think it was like the bastard son of the king. And he's like going around the tavern and he's talking to all these different people. And it was a continuous shot that happened there. And I thought that was really cool as well. And then the music just really hit in a couple of scenes when they're like kind of get that landscape shots. I thought they, like, to me, that really stood out in this episode. So not a lot to like dive into in my opinion. Like a lot of I feel like the chess pieces were being we're moving pawns in this particular point of the episode, and then you got the two queens on either side, and they made a huge move at the end. So like, okay, now let's go for episode 4. So we'll see what happens. This was I think they said this is the first episode where like a main character didn't die. But yeah, I'm here for it. I thought they did a really good job with kind of setting the scene of what's to come later on in this season. And I don't know if we're going to get the war this season, to be honest with you. I don't know.
I think we'll get something.
I feel like
we'll get something.
You get something?
Maybe not the big war. Maybe they'll save the majority, like the big stuff for next season. But excuse me, we're going to get some I think we'll get a big one this season. At least a couple.
Okay.
I mean, what's the big end of the season? There's something massive has to happen in order for us to come back next season. Right.
That's fair. But yeah, I thought this was a good episode, and I thought it ended very strong.
Same.
At the end of the day, yeah, like again, it wasn't as strong as maybe the first two, but definitely ended on a huge strong note. That I thought this when they first got into like when they first started talking, I was glued to the TV at that point. I was like, I don't know what's gonna happen, but I'm here for it. So yeah, another good episode for episode 3.
I am intrigued because the next episode is titled "A Dance of Dragons." So, A Dance of Dragon is famously titled for the fighting of the dragon. So I wonder if we're gonna see it.
Right.
I wonder if next episode we might see a dragon battle. So that'd be kind of interesting.
Oh, I can't wait for that.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I like that. Oh yeah. Anything else? Is that
That's
it?
all I got.
All right. All right, so let's get into it. Let's dive into our spoiler review of our film of the week. Our spoiler review of the week. Yeah, whatever. Kinds of Kindness, written, directed by Yorgos Lanthimos, starring Emma Stone, Jesse Plemons, Willem Dafoe. It was a weird one, Ernesto.
Yeah. To say
but
the least.
your thoughts on the movie?
Yeah, this movie was weird. So for those who are unaware, Kinds of Kindness is described as a triptych fable, consists of 3 distinct but loosely connected stories. For those who don't know what a triptych is, it's a work of art. Famously, you'll see these as like panel paintings. They are divided into 3 sections or 3 panels, and they're all equal, but they're loose. They'll be loosely connected, and we kind of see that through these films.
Well, sorry, before you dive into those, that information that you got, would that have been? Did you know that before going into the movie?
Yes.
Okay.
Only because I read the description.
Okay. I felt like if I knew that going in, it would have helped me a whole lot because I was so confused when I saw the credits after the first one, and I was like, oh, we're doing one of these. Okay. I literally walked in there with nothing, and I feel like that would have helped me with at least knowing what I was gonna get myself into if I knew that this was gonna be basically 3 short stories into a movie loosely tied together.
I mean, I knew it, and I feel like it only kind of helped me because it doesn't. I feel like even knowing that information doesn't really change how you feel about it. So I mean, this is a crazy ass movie. So the first story I feel was there's 3 stories: the death of RMF, RMF is flying, and RMF eats a sandwich. So, death of RMF is like the Jesse Plemons centered story. Basically, he is the main character, where he's living in corporate America and he's living by the rule of this boss. Basically, an extreme version of somebody who's married to their profession. Like, willing to do whatever it takes to move ahead. I'll do, like, it's an extreme example of that. And then we get the second one, which is RMF is flying, where you get him again as a police officer and his wife is missing. You get news that she's miraculously returned, but he feels like something is off. But that one was really weird to me too. That one was really strange.
Yeah.
The last one, RMF eats a sandwich. That's where we basically get equal time. This is more of the Emma Stone focused storyline, where I feel like the second one was a little bit maybe equal for both of them. Like it was more of like both of their stories, and I feel like this last story was mainly her story. So
yeah,
if that makes any sense, because he was in the last story, but not as much. RMF eats a sandwich. They're 2 cult members. They're looking for somebody who can reanimate the dead. And let's just say they said Hunter Schafer was in this movie, but Hunter Schafer was in 1 scene, and that was it. Right? Did I miss that?
I need to familiarize who Hunter Schafer is. Hold on.
The one from Songbird and Snakes. The one from Hunger Games. Games.
Yeah, no, he was barely in that movie.
Yeah, 1 scene.
Yeah.
1 scene, but they detailed it as them being in like a main person. Regardless, it was strange. They're looking for somebody who can reanimate the dead, but it has to have, Emily Emma Stone's character knew that it wasn't the initial woman who they looked for because of the dream she had, and then she finds these twins, and then she ends up, and this is the part where I get kind of, because I think maybe I might have nodded off during the last story. So, if I remember correctly, she finds out about the twins.
Yes.
And then she somehow reconnects with her family, and then they find out that she's dirty, and she gets kicked out of the cult. So then she goes on a rogue mission.
Oh, okay. So you missed a big part of that story. If you don't know how she got dirty, then
well, because didn't she have sex with her husband or something?
She got raped by her husband.
She got raped by her husband. Yeah,
Correct.
I 100% missed that part.
Yeah, she got drugged, and then he raped her while she was unconscious.
Okay.
Yeah. So okay, all right. So because I feel like there's a lot and also not a lot, because it's also very confusing with all these different stories that are going on. I want to go back up to Death of RMF. Let's just focus on that one and see if we can pick that apart. Then we'll do the same for 2 and 3. So honestly, I feel like the Death of RMF was the one that most straightforward.
Yeah, it could have been a whole movie. I would have watched a whole movie of that.
I was prepared to until the credits rolled. Yeah, I thought that was that was the one that made the most sense to me. You have, like you said, Jesse Plemons, and I watched a breakdown video that tried to explain certain things and what this kind of all was about, and it looks like in this film, it also didn't help that this movie was 2 hours and 45 minutes. So yeah, it makes sense that you nodded off, because it was also just uninteresting for the majority of the time. After the first hour, I was kind of done already. Like honestly, after the first short, I was like, oh, I have to like reinvest again. And then 50 minutes later, I have to reinvest again. I without really much of a tie in between the three. And based on the that I saw, there is a very loose tie that we'll get into later. But specifically talking about the Death of RMF, the theme for that particular short, it was described as like, this is a toxic work relationship.
Yes.
And this was the theme surrounding that. And you can see that basically Willem Dafoe is this very controlling boss, and basically controls every minute of everything that he does, gives him a nice home, basically set him up with his wife, tells him what to eat, tells him what to wear, tells him when to have sex with his wife, makes have him make sure he's going on a diet, and then all the while, and this is where like Jesse Plemons draws the line, was that Willem Dafoe asked him, "Hey, I want you to get into a car crash and basically kill a man for me for what we don't know," and it was a point that Willem Dafoe refused. I'm sorry, Jesse Plemons refused. And then Willem Dafoe's like, "That's okay. It was nice working with you." And then Jesse Plemons' kind of world goes to shambles because he is unaware of how to live without that direction in his life. And you can see that he's going to shit. He's eating poorly. And you have that, like, again, it's just an example of like, here's a man that devoted his life to work, but yet he doesn't really know who he is. He has no identity other than work. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of, and then he sees that he tried to make a relationship with Emma Stone, but then he realizes that Emma Stone's the kind of his replacement. Mm-hmm. And then just to get in the good graces of Willem Dafoe, his boss, he takes the unconscious person he tried to get into a car crash with, which is RMF, and then drags him into the parking garage and literally runs him over. And then he gets praised by Willem Dafoe at the end, getting that like nurture, that gratification, the satisfaction that he was looking for this entire time. And it's kind of like an over exaggerated version of how we can lose ourselves into work, and without work, who are we as individuals? It took me that breakdown video to get to this point.
Yeah, I did not
not
get that from the story. I thought it was, I just thought it was funny and kind of just outlandish. I got the idea of the toxic workplace and being addicted to work. I got all that, but it was just absurd. And not absurd in like a good way. I'm good. I'm okay with like Poor Things was absurd, but it was entertainingly absurd. This was like just dark to be dark. Like he's feeding his wife mifepristone. Like that's fucked up. I mean, the husband in the third story. So then there's a fucked up action almost in each one. So the first one, he gives her the birth control pills in her coffee. Let me see. The second one, he has her
eat the fingers,
cutting the fingers, cuts her liver out, and then the third one, Emma Stone is raped.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What the? Yep. The music is saying. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So we got through the main parts of it. So yeah, that was pretty much like Act 1 was like the toxic work relationship. Act 2 is being described as so the RMF is flying, and so the character of RMF obviously plays a bigger role in the first act of it all. We see him, he was like the first shot of the film of him walking up and like making sure this is the right person. Then he ended up getting to the car accident and he dies at the end. The second act, it says RMF is flying. He's actually flying the helicopter in which Emma Stone is returned back from. It's the same character.
I must have missed that.
And so like that, it was very quick. It's like blink if you miss it. I vaguely remember that because like I did remember him seeing in the theater, but it wasn't until the breakdown video was like, okay, like yes, that it was him in the helicopter. So he was flying the helicopter when they rescued Emma Stone when she was lost for whatever reason. And so yeah, so that's what the flying is from, I guess. And if you want to see it this way, this is probably a prequel to this story because he's alive, and he died in Act 1. So Act 2, basically the theme here was the toxic romance relationship that you have with your spouse. And so for whatever reason, it starts off with her missing, and you can see that he's obsessed with that. And honestly, the dark humor part of this part that had me kind of laugh out loud funny was like he wanted to look at the video, like to remember her by, and he's like, no, that's probably awkward. We probably shouldn't do that. He's like, no, I really want to watch the video. And then he kind of does like a breakdown. He's like, yeah, we can watch the video. And that video was him and his friends having an orgy.
Yes. And he's playing it like so loud.
It's like, can we turn it down a little bit? It's like, oh yeah, no, sure, no problem.
He turns it down like two little notches.
I was like, what? And I think to your point, that's absurd being absurd.
Like that I was okay with.
That was somewhat like unexpectedly funny in a way. Very, very similar humor to Poor Things in a way. And then, however, for whatever reason, they find Emma Stone, who is Jesse Plemons' wife, and for Plemons is like something's off about this. Also to be known that they were playing two cops, which I don't think really had anything to do with the story, to be honest with you. And like Emma Stone's like some sort of scientist that was on this. For some reason, she got trapped in this island. I think they were on a boat and they got stranded on an island and they resorted to cannibalism for whatever reason. And I think it's led to believe that maybe she ate some of the passengers that were on there. But Plemons has this odd feeling about like, this isn't the woman that I married. This is someone completely different. And of course, the episode, Willem Dafoe plays Emma Stone's father in this one, and he never really approves of Jesse Plemons as a husband. And then Emma Stone tells this weird story of how they interacted with a society of dogs, of highly intelligent dogs that were kind of treating them as prisoners while they were on this island. And then, so I think it's one to believe that maybe her body was switched at some point, so this isn't actually the Emma Stone that we see, and this is not Jesse Plemons' wife, and all that stuff. And then for Plemons to test this theory, he makes her cut off her limbs, first with a finger and then with her liver. And then ultimately, when she cuts out her liver, just to appease to him, is like, oh, if you love me so much and you want to help me, cut off your finger and feed it to me. And he's like, well, your finger was gross, so cut out your liver instead and feed it to me and cook it. And that's what I want for dinner. Obviously, she bled out, and then when the door opened, we see Emma Stone again, and like, okay, this is the wife that I married. And the whole, I did not get this at all. This was kind of the most absurd one out of all of them, in my opinion, the one I just could not get to. But according to the breakdown video, this is, and I don't know if I agreed to this too much, but this is what they explained. They said that this second act was more a toxic romance relationship, the one that you have with your spouse, and unable to accept change in your partner. And so, like, he was unable to accept that she likes chocolate now, or he didn't remember her favorite music, was like his favorite song. There were so many changes that she was experiencing once she returned that he was unable to accept that, and he was trying to force down a version of her that no longer exists. And
but he was right. She was not that person.
Well, I guess when you're thinking of it literally, yes. But like when you're thinking about it, not thematically, but like the themes of it all, he had to kill the version he didn't like to get the version that he did like. So
that's a little bit of a stretch.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like there's might be a little bit.
I don't know if I necessarily
of that,
agree
but
with
like
that. I do understand like not accepting and noticing, but it was very blatant. I mean, she cut her finger off. And then she died, and then they showed her. So almost to showcase like, oh, well, he was right. That was not her. So.
But I guess in his mind, he was right. I guess they're trying to explain. In his mind, this was not the version. So this version of Stone was willing to do anything to appease the
toxicity,
how bad the toxicity, yes, of this relationship. She was willing. She even got hurt and went to the hospital and was unable to tell the therapist or the doctor any wrongdoing whatsoever. Kind of like, again, how toxic this relationship is. And then she was willing to die trying to go again to kind of get his love. She died trying to make him happy.
Oh, and the whole pregnant thing. Like, what didn't she like punch her? Or I guess he punched her. And actually, they don't even tell us. They don't even tell the audience. You're still left knowing, like, oh, well, did she punch herself? Or, I thought that was an interesting choice. So, like, when you hear about those stories, it's like you think one thing, but it may be the other thing. Also, because she's like this non-human, whatever the hell, clone person thing. So. Yeah, that's the thing. Really it's like you want to tell us these themes, but you're distracting us with this weird ass fable that is actually true. That all this weird, absurd shit is happening. So how can I connect to your themes if that's really what you meant? That is not what you achieved. That is not. I didn't get that. I didn't get that. I didn't translate whatsoever. Like, you can tell that in an absurd way, but you negate everything when you make all those things that we're questioning, when you make them real. When the real person shows up, they go, oh, well, I guess he's not this psychotic crazy person. Or I guess he is, because instead of him investigating, I'm thinking about it out loud as I say it. So, like, he investigates, I guess there could have been a much better way to investigate, and maybe that's why they made him a cop. So to give you that, like, maybe he could have been thinking better as a detective, as somebody who deals with crimes. Maybe you should have thought of a better way than to chop off your spouse's finger and have her cut her liver out. Like, maybe there was a safer way for you to figure out if she was the real person or not. That is the only, like, that's kind of how I can cook all this shit together for it to make sense.
But also, like, obviously, I mean, he was highly convinced that was not his wife, and it literally, I guess it wasn't another version, but another version of her, the real one, I guess, immediately walked through the door. So, like, to me, that doesn't make any sense unless you look at it, if you're following the themes of like, okay, yeah, I guess it makes sense that in his mind, his real wife showed up. The version that he remembers showed up at the end once the version that he didn't like and was suspicious about ended up killing herself just to make him happy. But to your point, and what I feel like what you were getting at was that, yeah, none of that came across in my initial viewing. I was still as confused as I was kind of with the first act. Actually, I was more confused after the end of the second story than I was with the first one. At least the first one, it made a little bit more sense to me toward the end of it all. This one, I was completely lost. And then at the end credits, you have the dogs driving around the car, kind of going along the thing. Yeah, it's kind of fun to watch, I guess. But like, it just continues to be like, what is going on?
The whole time I'm watching, I'm like, what are we doing here? Like, what is happening?
Yeah. And then we kind of get to our third one, which it makes a little bit more sense by the end of it all. And it's called RMF Eats a Sandwich, which the title didn't make any sense to me. And again, the breakdown video made it the breakdown video said that there was an end credit scene of the man eating a sandwich. So that's where the title comes from. The title comes from the end credit scene of him actually eating a sandwich.
I missed that. I didn't see that. Credits rolled, and I was like, I'm done.
I'm gone. I agree with you. Like, I've sat here for 2 hours and 40 minutes. I'm not going to sit here to see if there's an end credit scene. No way am I doing that. But yeah, so then we have Plemons. So this third story was described as the toxic faith relationships that you have, like how toxic, like going around a cult and how faith can be, which that one I can agree with in a way. And you, like, to your point, you said you have Plemons and Stone kind of going on this mission to find somebody who can basically, in their eyes, and the way that I understand it, was like their Messiah. They were trying to find their Jesus, their whatever they believe in. They were trying to find that person to basically resurrect the people. They were just trying to find Jesus, and basically the way I understood it. And in order to be involved with this cult, they had to do XYZ to be part of it. So part of their faith was that you had to be cleansed. Therefore, no intercourse or sex with anyone outside of the cult. Even more so, you had to have sex with either Willem Dafoe or who played his wife, Hong Chu. Like, those are the only two people you're allowed to have sex with, because those are the purest of them all. So that's why we saw the scene of them, making appointments to have sex. And then when they feel like someone isn't pure, they make them go through this hot box, basically making them pass out to sweat. And then we saw in the beginning toward the beginning of that short, she ended up licking that other woman. It's like, she's pure, she's good, she can stay in the cult. And then they're only allowed to drink water from the tears of other people in the cult.
That was weird.
Which is why they they're also in those hot boxes as well. It's kind of a form of, maybe not torture, but like, I guess it acts as both, because then they have this huge pool of their sweat and tears, and then that's where they can only drink out of, since they are the purest of them all. And the other thing that you had to do was you had to abandon your family, which is something that Emma Stone was having a hard time dealing with. She kept going into her daughter's room when her husband and daughter was away from the house and making sure that, like, everything was either okay, sprinkling the water on the bed to keep her cleansed, I guess. I don't know. But you can tell that she was having an issue with that. So much so that she kind of awkwardly runs into her husband and his daughter and their daughter when she mistimed when they were coming home. And he's like, come for dinner and all that stuff. And then she kind of fed into that temptation, going against what the cult wanted to do. And this then follows the horrific act of her husband basically drugging her and raping her. And then ultimately the cult finding out about that and then taking her away from the cult because you're no longer following the rules of what the cult is. But she still wanted to find the Messiah, and she felt like that finding said Messiah was the only way to get her good graces back into the cult. Now, the whole twin thing confused the hell out of me. I did not like any of that. Like telling the twin story, getting, trying to find who the Messiah was, the dreams, all that stuff, could not get into. And then fast forward to the end where she finally finds said Messiah based off the twin story, drugs her, and then kind of the dark humor of it all. She's been driving reckless this entire third act, and then, due to her reckless driving, almost gets into a car accident. Actually, no, she did. She hit the sign. This other woman goes through the windshield and she dies, and her only chance of being involved in this cult is now gone. And then the third act is over.
Yeah, this is after she finds out that she can do the thing. She was actually able to bring RMF. But that's where we see RMF. Isn't that who she brings back to life?
That's where we see RMF.
Yeah, she brings RMF back to life. Excuse me. And we go outside and we get that scene from the trailer where she's doing that dance.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, so literally we get the end of the movie in another, like, just giving shit away. Like, literally the end of the movie is in the trailer. She starts dancing, she gets in the car, she starts speed racing around, she hits the thing, and then the girl dies. And then she literally crashes, and if I remember correctly, she's out there like trying to see if she's okay. It's like, no, she's dead.
She's dead.
She literally went through the windshield.
And then apparently at the end credit scene, which both of us did not see, we have RMF alive and well now because he just got resurrected and he's eating a sandwich. And so RMF is the only through line through in these three stories, and it didn't really matter. Like, it didn't matter at all. Like, he died. He was kind of like this person that has nothing to do with what's going on, but he's our only through line. And I guess you can see that also as a comedic way of like, yeah, he agreed to die, he died, and then he was flying a helicopter, and then all these different scenarios happened, then he somehow came back to life, and now he's eating a sandwich. And then a lot of people are asking, like, what does RMF stand for? Like, what does that mean? What's a deeper meaning behind it? And Yorgos said in an interview that he's not going to disclose that. He wants people to try to figure out and go throughout the themes. During the breakdown video that I saw, there was like a Reddit thread of some of the meanings, and the one that he felt like was maybe the closest to what it could have meant was redemption, manipulation, and faith, which were the three main themes of each short. Redemption for Jesse Plemons, manipulation from also Jesse Plemons with his relationship with Emma Stone, and then obviously faith with the whole theme of the last act. So I'm like, okay, I can kind of get there. I can see that. I'm okay with that. But yeah, he definitely wanted people. He didn't really give much information on like the deeper meanings of this, and wanted people to try to form their own opinions on it. But I think at the end of the day, when you literally give us nothing within these three, like when you are too ambiguous, it's hard for the audience to kind of latch onto. Like, you told us these three stories that are loosely tied together for 2 hours and 45 minutes, and for the entire time I just felt like blah. Like I wasn't entertained, I wasn't enthralled, I was really just bored throughout this entire thing. And maybe this is not a movie that's meant to be enjoyed in a way. It's supposed to be like something to really stimulate, like you really got to think about it to get to the themes. And I feel like that's fine. But I just saw you a few months ago do that with Poor Things, and I was able to get there as well as be entertained. Yeah. So to have a huge shift into this is kind of a little bit of a letdown for me, where I feel like I know you can do that. I've not only in Poor Things, but I've seen you do it in other movies. So why does this one have to be so like absurd and like, I don't know, like really ambiguous? Like I don't need you to spoon feed it for me, but at least show me where the spoon is.
Exactly. Let me know what the spoon looks like.
Yeah, something. But yeah, it was just a weird movie that I just felt disconnected with the entire time.
100%. I mean, I literally nodded off during the movie, and I tried so hard to be fully engaged, but this one just wasn't there for me. Like, I could have gotten
Mm-hmm.
a whole, like, why couldn't we've got that in a complete single narrative through, like, we could have
Mm-hmm.
gotten all that through the first story. You just get a couple more actors. You could have
Yeah.
you could have told us all of these stories with just different actors in a single narrative that they didn't even have to connect. They could have just existed in the same universe, but we could have went back and forth between them and gotten the same thing, as opposed to this three separate thing. It just wasn't for me.
Yeah, but if you think about it, I kind of like where you were going with for a second there. Think about like Forrest Gump. Forrest Gump has six different sections of his life, right? You have the time where he was in the war, time where he was doing the shrimp, time where he was running for the Olympics. Like those were like stages of his life. And so if we were let's take that example and put that into Kinds of Kindness. And if we start off with Jesse Plemons and then he ends up getting into a relationship with Emma Stone by the end of the first act, the second act could have been your relationship. You with that, and then the third act could have been your faith. That maybe the toxic, I can't even say that word right. Thank you, of your relationship forced both of you to go down
cult?
to like this cult. Exactly. And you could have continued that story from there, but having a clear narrative following the same characters rather than having them in three separate stories. Yeah, you make a complete sense. That would have worked perfectly.
I'd watch the hell out of that. It could have been, and it could have been just as absurd, just as Poor Things was. But where the difference is that Poor Things is a single narrative that has all these themes woven into the story, as opposed to this shit. It's like, throw it at the wall. It's like, well, this sticks with this story. It's like, you know what? We can't connect them. Let's just do 3 stories. 3 short films in one film.
Yeah. I feel like that even though he is like Yorgos is known for his kind of outlandish films, this one in particular felt like it was just too far out of reach to really gain something out of it. And even after watching like the breakdown video and explaining a few things, that still doesn't help how I felt during and after the movie. Like I felt I was extremely bored while I was watching it, and then I felt like I wasted my time when I was walking out of the theater.
I was like,
so it's
there's
kind of
2 hours and 45 minutes. Excuse me, after previews and everything, there's 3 hours of my life I'll never get back.
yeah, exactly. But again, we were kind of already there. But your final thoughts on Kinds of Kindness?
I'm gonna go 2 stars. I'm actually floating between a 1.5 or a 2. Just because like if you're gonna do something weird like that, like don't make it 3 hours. Just don't make it 3 hours. Like you can do shit like this, but don't make me waste this much of my day to commit to this. It just could have been much shorter. This is a complete miss for me, and I guess I was just looking for what Poor Things gave us, because I really enjoyed Poor Things.
Yeah, and that's not a hard ask, because I felt the same way. I also was expecting a Poor Things level film, and I'll be really curious if this has any Oscar attention down the line. If if the critics really leaned into this type of narrative, if we're gonna get anything back. Honestly, in my opinion, nothing really stood out for me to give any in the conversation for an award season.
Oh, I agree 100%. I think maybe for Jesse Plemons, just because he won it at Cannes, so I think there's that conversation. But yeah, I'm kind of don't see anything for this. Like I'd be very surprised.
Yeah.
Besides for Jesse Plemons, maybe for Best Actor, and even then, that's a stretch. But we know how the Academy is, so I wouldn't be surprised if he was nominated. I will say
this would be honestly a shock, if anything. If we have to talk about this film again outside of this episode, I will be quite shocked if this is in the award season conversation come in the next few months.
It'll be brief mentions.
Yeah, seriously. But yeah, I think it's kind of hard to say because like I was not a huge fan of Yorgos with his earlier films, even though like I didn't mind them. I thought they were really interesting in what he was doing and some of the themes that he was presenting, but like nothing that I was like I was like, okay, the movie's weird, but like I got a little bit of what you were saying. And then you have Poor Things where like I'm in on this dude, man. He gave us a film that I just wasn't expecting. And not only did you give us weird, but I was all in on your themes. I was able to latch on and go for the ride with this one. And then so it was like I feel like we were like kind of riding a low bar with his previous work, in my opinion. Then we hit this huge spike for Poor Things, and then we go below that bar that we set from his previous films, and like I don't know what happened. So I feel like that coming off the high of Poor Things, this kind of like the blow was even harder. Not enjoying this movie, but as to agree with you, kind of understanding some of the themes that he was going with. I will live with a 2 on this. It's like it, and in some cases, this wasn't terrible. This was still better than Madam Web.
Well, that's not a high bar.
It isn't, but I gotta start somewhere. But it's just like this is still a fine-ish movie that just wasn't for me, right? It's just like I'm sure other people can really dive into those themes and this is their jam. It just wasn't mine.
Not my flavor
at all. Yeah, it's this like it was not I guess for me it wasn't a good movie. But I can see where it could have been, which is why I think it's getting the 2-star rating for me. Like I can see where other people can see that they really enjoy this. It's just this movie was not it. So 2 stars and a little bit disappointed in this movie, especially coming off the high of Poor Things.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. And his next movie's coming out next year, I believe next November. So I don't know. I'm not sure where he's going to be apprehensive about going into the next Yorgos Lanthimos movie.
Begonia, I believe it's called.
Okay. Starring Emma Stone and Jesse Plemons were right out the gate. So obviously they're having a good time with they're jiving. But yeah. So anyway, that's our spoiler review on Kinds of Kindness. Like there's not much we can really kind of go
I don't know. There's not
that.
much more to say about it. I don't really have anything else to say about it. It was just kind of like just a thing that we watched. Like I walked out of it and I go, okay, that was an afternoon.
Yeah, I think as we used to say, this movie wasn't for me, and it was a movie that we watched.
Yep.
And we'll just leave
it at that.
Yeah, but there you go. That's our spoiler review on Kinds of Kindness, and that is all the show we have for you guys this week. Ernesto, tell the people, unless we don't know. I'm not sure if we came up with what we're reviewing for next week. Did we lock it down?
I believe that we landed on A Quiet Place Day 1. I believe that is going to be our review for next week. But anything changes. Either way, there will be a show next week.
Yes.
And there is a 97.3 chance that it's going to be A Quiet Place Day 1. Unless something crazy happens or scheduling wise we can't make it work. We should have a normal show next week with all the bells and whistles that we have, but you guys got the rough and dirty show today.
That's okay. If you want more from us, you can always follow us on our social media channels, on Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok at Box Office Bingers, our X and Letterboxd page at Box Office Binger, and our Threads and Instagram page at @boxoffice_bingers. I am so proud that I memorized all that. I typically rely on the graphic, but I'm like, I don't have it today. So,
you're a big boy.
Yes, earn the stripes today, son.
I did good.
Did good, yeah. But yeah, the movie fun continues over there. So if you're not following those social media channels, what are you doing? Why? I mean, we appreciate you listening, but there's so much more over there.
Exactly.
So do yourself a favor, follow all of them if you want, or just a few. We're not greedy. Just pick your favorites, any one of them, really. But yeah, the fun continues over there. And yeah, that's all the show we have for you guys this week. Thank you, each and every one of you, for listening to us just talk about movies and TV shows. Really do appreciate it. Come back next week for more movie fun. You're not going to regret it. And for that, I've been your host, Matt Diaz.
Been Ernesto Santos. See ya.